The Nuggets will march through the mean streets of Denver, capped off by a championship rally, the culmination of being able to navigate their way through the rough waters and get 16 wins in the postseason. And with that in the backdrop, the Joker has filled up the content kitty. We're going to play some sound here in a sec. Now, if you didn't hear what he had to say recently, maybe not, the Nikola Jokic, the NBA Finals MVP, which many think is cooler than the regular season MVP that Joel Embiid won. And anyway, Nikola Jokic doing his regular interview thing you have to do as an MVP in the NBA Finals. And he was asked if he was at the peak of his superpowers. That was the question that was asked, a version of that question. And what Jokic said next surprised many, considering his domination. And rather than me pretend to be Nikola Jokic, let's go to the audio tape. Here's Nikola Jokic again asked if he's at the very peak of his powers.
I think I can be much better, but you need to still sacrifice yourself. But basketball is not the main thing in my life. It's something that I'm good at. I'm just happy that as a team.
There you go. That's the money quote, right? Did you pick that up? That was from the Entertainment and Sports Network, a fledgling outfit. I hope they make it out of Bristol, Connecticut. So the quote there, basketball is not the main thing in my life. It's something that I'm good at. That's the quote. That's the money quote right there. Mr. Finals MVP. Big flex. Big flex. It's not really the most important thing. I just happen to be good at it. That's it. Like golf. People golf on the weekends. They're good at it. But, I have a regular job. All right, so let us discuss the question. You just heard it. The Denver Nuggets Finals MVP, Nikola Jokic, saying that basketball is not the main thing in his life. How do you process that? So I've got boundaries, moonwalk, and IOUs. And we will combine these things together, and we are going to make a plate of Rocky Mountain oysters, the kind that I ate, which was disgusting when I lost a bet a couple years ago. All right, anyway, and I hope all the people in Denver who are listening, they can't sleep, they're so excited for the parade, make sure you eat the Maller-themed sandwich, which is at the Sportsbook Bar and Grill. 3 locations in the greater Denver area. And there's a sandwich with the Maller name on it. It's a chicken sandwich, so you got to get your hands on that. But number one, the Joker is in line with a bunch of the modern players, the contemporaries around the NBA. I don't like it. I like the player that is all about that action, boss. But I guess I'm from a different generation, but the way I grew up is the great athlete. When I was a kid, I always was told the great athlete's the one who lives, eats, breathes, sleeps basketball, and that's all or whatever their sport is, whether it's basketball, football. We're talking basketball, so we're focused on that, but whatever it is. And that's what makes you great, right? Like the legend of the Black Mamba, Kobe Bryant, right? That he worked all the time, and he was very passionate about that. And he wasn't into really much of anything else. He had no real hobbies other than basketball. But that's a dying breed. There are a few of those type of players left. There's not many of them. And right now, those type of guys are usually the last guy on the bench that makes the team because they happen to outwork somebody else. But the top-level players, the very top level of the NBA, it is a whole different world. It's been this way for a few years. But Nikola Jokic can now have a seat at the round table with the Greek Freak and Uncle Drew. Let's not forget, just a few months ago, Giannis Antetokounmpo famously said there is no failure in sport. There are good days and bad days. And Kyrie Irving, good old Kyrie, said a lot of stuff is going on in this world, and basketball is just not the most important thing to me. That was his famous quote, and now we have Nikola Jokic adding to that and saying basketball is not the main thing in my life. It's just something I'm good at. That's it. So these guys are wired differently, very talented, lacking the blind rage for basketball. kind of get a kick out of it. You're a top-notch athlete, and you're like, yeah, it's kind of like I'm working as a data analyst, and it's just punch the clock 9 to 5. That's it. That's all it is. Yeah, sure. Why not? So it's like a side hustle, right? Nikola Jokic got a little side hustle. Some people sell stuff on eBay as their side hustle, or maybe you go to the swap meet, the flea market on the weekends and sell some crap, or you try to sell stuff somewhere online and offer up or one of those places. And Jokic is like, hey, I can live a life as an oligarch, and he would rather be on a farm in Serbia racing horses. Yeah. So all these guys setting boundaries. That's it, right? You set boundaries. I've never been good at this. Time management, assessing priorities, work-life balance. It also does not usually endear yourself to Madison Avenue, this attitude. It's hard to do a good commercial with a top-notch athlete who would rather lay in a hammock and have a nap than take some extra shots on the court. You know what I'm saying? It's like a hard sell. It's a hard marketing sell if you're doing a commercial about overcoming the odds and being the top of your profession. That helps explain part of the reason Nikola Jokic's total endorsement earnings last year were $2 million. Now, to put that in perspective, what does that mean? That's a lot of money, $2 million. I'd be very happy with that. But when you're an MVP, that's embarrassing. It's emasculating, $2 million. That is less than several players who have never made even an all-NBA team, we are told, including Brandon Ingram, who made more than Nikola Jokic. Jamal Murray, who's never made an all-NBA team or been an MVP in Denver, his teammate, Jokic's teammate, has also made more, like almost double what Jokic has made. But wait, there's more. Sportico tells us that every other active player who had won MVP before this season scored at least $30 million in off-court earnings. And our guy, Jokic, $2 million. Even Derrick Rose did not earn $30 million, but he still made $11 million, and he hasn't been dominant in years, Derrick Rose, because of injury. All right, now turning the page. There's other stuff going on that caught my attention in basketball. How about in Minnesota? You see this story here? Yeah. The Wolves' Karl Anthony Towns says that when he retires from the NBA years down the line, people will say he changed the game. That's a quote. He says people will say he changed the game. So what does that say about Karl Anthony Towns? All right, so to me, it tells us that this guy is really a different kind of cat, right? He's a different kind of cat. That Towns, he was the number one overall pick in the 2015 draft. We are now 8 seasons into his career. That's a pretty good amount of time. That's longer than the average NBA career, 8 seasons. And Karl Anthony Towns has played on mostly sub-500 teams. He's played over 500 games. He has not made the players around him better. And so our conclusion is, based on a minutes-long Maller investigation, I want to see if you agree with me. Just nod your head. You don't need to call. But Karl Anthony Towns is doing the moonwalk at Michael Jackson's old Neverland Ranch, that he's living in a different universe, different dimension. The only things he's been elite at, and I might be missing something, and maybe you want to help me on this, but lacking self-awareness, he's elite at that. He is not lacking. He is not very good at the self-awareness. He's lacking in that department. So he's elite at the shortage of self-awareness, and also winning a power struggle with Jimmy Butler, who did play in Minnesota, and then the famous story, I don't know if it's true or not, but I love the story, that Jimmy Butler and the backups beat Karl Anthony Towns and the other guys that were supposed to be good in Minnesota in a scrimmage, and the Timberwolves still picked Karl Anthony Towns over Jimmy Buckets. And also Karl Anthony is good at acting like that guy Billy West, the man of a million voices, right? Remember that TikTok video I think we mentioned it on the show, maybe not, but the TikTok video of Karl Anthony Towns being outed for changing his voice to try to sound like Kobe Bryant after a Wolves game. It was pretty embarrassing. All right, next stop. Let's go to Boston quickly. So the final part of this, the chatter around the NBA says, despite all kinds of Bradley Beal trade speculation coming out of Washington, that the Wizards are going to cast a spell and send Bradley Beal out of town and say, bye-bye, get out of here, we're done. So our guy CJ that called up last hour, CJ, you got to clear the runway because Beal's heading out of town. Anyway, the chatter says the Celtics we're working on a Jaylen Brown extension. They would rather have a Jaylen Brown extension than a transaction for Bradley Beal. Do you believe it or not? Do you believe the chatter? So, yes, I am a believer. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. And here's why. The Celtics have had the opportunity to get Bradley Beal for several years. He's been out there on the auctioning block, and they have not acted. And they've had draft picks. They've had other players that were deemed attractive to trade that were not the key guys, and they have decided not to do it. And so why would that change now? Other than the fact Jaylen Brown took a ride on the vomit comet in several big games for the Celtics in the playoffs, and when Jason Tatum came up lame and his ankle was all messed up, Brown couldn't pick up the slack. But as far as the contract extension, I don't think that's happening. I think this is some old-fashioned meandering. As I understand it, the Celtics have 1 year left to play with, and then the IOUs come due, which means they can keep Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown around for one more year without giving them the max extension. The cutoff on Jaylen Brown is next summer, the summer of 2024, when they have to decide whether they want to go down to the bank, put a mask on, and rob the bank and get money and then give him $300 million. And between Tatum and Brown, it would be about $600 million total for those two guys. Oh, man, that's wild. Anyway, so that's where we are. So I think they wait. I think the play. If I were the Celtics, I would trade Jaylen Brown. I would love to get Jason Tatum, or get Jason Tatum. I should say Damian Lillard. Team those two guys up. I know Lillard doesn't want to go to Boston, but who cares? You have a no trade clause. Oh wait, you don't. So you can be traded anywhere. And I have a feeling Lillard would actually fall in love with Boston if he played there because of the way he approaches the game and all that. I think that would resonate with the home folk there in that area. But the other thing with Bradley Beal, like, he's a good player as far as trading for Bradley Beal, but also he's good by himself. He doesn't make other people. He's not a force multiplier. I've not seen him rise. The rising tide in Washington has not risen the Wizards up to being anything more than unwatchable since he's been there.